Hello to all God's precious people out there in radio land and TV land. This is Sylvia Pierce on The Liberating Secret. I'm so glad to be with you today. Well, I've got one of my best and favorite friends with me today, my precious friend, Sharon White Skaggs, a dear friend of mine. And we're going to be sharing today, really, I want her to really share her story of how she found the liberating secret. And just tell us something about you first, Sharon.
Well, I'm a singer. That's my profession. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. My husband is Ricky Skaggs, also a singer. And we are in the country music business. I play on the Grand Ole Opry with my dad and my sister Cheryl. We are the Whites. We've been the Whites for a long time. That happens to be my maiden name, so that just happens to be my real name. But we've traveled for many years singing and playing, and I was raised in church, raised in a Christian home, and taught to love the Lord at a young age, taught that music was a gift that God had given our family, and that He wanted us to share it with the world. And, Daddy always said, you're going to be an influence, and it's up to you if you want to be a good influence or a bad influence. And so we believed our music was a gift from God, and we've used it. We've sung together as a family for a long time. Since we moved to Nashville in 1971, but we'd been really practicing and getting ready for it a long time before that. Daddy likes to say our first professional road show was in 1967. No, 1969, I'm sorry, 1969. We were living in Arkansas at the time. I'm originally from North Texas, but lived most of my growing up years in Arkansas, and we traveled to Louisiana. It was the first time that we traveled out of state. Somebody booked us to play out of state, and they paid us. So that was our first professional road show. And I just always loved singing. I knew that was what I wanted to do with my life. I thought I did anyway. And we moved to Tennessee in 1971 and have been making our living doing that since then.
And tell them how we met.
Well, thank goodness for the music. Mm-hmm. We were doing a series of shows, a tour, and traveling all across the United States, and you came out and saw us, and I got introduced to you by someone else who was part of that tour, and you traveled along with us for a few nights, and I was immediately drawn to you. There was something about the way she talked and what she said, and in fact, my sister Cheryl and I, we said, we haven't heard this stuff since Mama. This is what Mama always said, and Mother's life verse was in Colossians, where Paul's talking about the mystery of the gospel. He says, it's Christ in you, the hope of glory. And if Mama quoted that to me once, it was at least 1,000,000 times. And she said, if you'll just ever get a hold of that, it'll change your life. And I thought I had. I really thought I had. I know my mom had. But
how do you know that?
Oh, because...
Did she go through, didn't you tell me one time that she went through a real depression, and then when she came out of that depression is when she really discovered?
She had some health issues that did cause her to be depressed a lot and fearful, and we were traveling a lot. And I have 2 younger sisters, well, 4, there are 4 of us in all, and the 3 oldest of us were traveling the road, and my baby sister was left at home with Mom. And it got so bad that Mother didn't want to be left alone in the evening time. When it'd start being dusk, sundown, she'd get real scared and didn't want Melissa to leave her side, and she cried out to the Lord, and He began to show her that He was always with her. I don't know what all she went through that taught her that. I just know she was all about Jesus, always. You couldn't have a conversation with her for very long without her bringing up the Lord.
But she knew that Christ lived in her.
She certainly did, and you know, I don't know specifically what caused that revelation to come. I just know that she said that one day it was as if it was dropped into her spirit, and she said, I could never. It's like the heavens opened up, and she saw that she had Christ living within her, and she said, I was never the same. That's what she always said. And you won't be either. You know, if you get it, you won't ever be the same. And I know that one of the examples of that was we would try to get her to do things that she didn't want to do, or she didn't think she was supposed to do. I mean, like, just go with us to the Opry. I always thought, Mom, it's a great mission field out there. You can, people need to hear what you've got to say. And if she didn't feel like she's supposed to go, she wouldn't go. She wouldn't go to church just because they said to go, or to go to visit someone in the hospital, unless she felt the Lord wanted her to go.
Led of the Lord.
And if He led her, you couldn't keep her from it.
That's great. So you couldn't guilt her.
No way. I tried. Tried every way.
So, but that wasn't really quite a reality for you then at that point.
It wasn't. In fact, I used to think she was being very stubborn and just kind of bullheaded and wanted to do it her way. When she wouldn't do things like that we thought she ought to do, and I always thought too that it was something. I wanted her to face her fears. What my kind of motive was in it was because she was shy about crowds at times, and yet she could stand up in front of a church or a Sunday school class and talk about Jesus, or she could do it one-on-one. She was excellent on one-on-one. That was really her gift. But it wasn't a fear. I see that now. But because I used to think, well, she's just intimidated about going to the Opry, and or going here or doing this. But it wasn't that at all. And she went where she felt like she was supposed to go.
Well, tell us just briefly about, she's passed on into glory now.
In fact, she passed away in June before I met you later that year. Before we really spent time together later that year. That was 2002. And, my family, we served the Lord and have for a long time, and we have a lot of faith. And my dad and Sister Cheryl and I were in Denver when she had a heart attack, and our younger sisters called us and said she's had a heart attack. She's in the hospital, and it was almost midnight when they talked to us, and so we had to wait till the next morning to get out of there and fly home. And she lived until we made it home, but she was not conscious when we got there. But I believe that she knew we were there. And there's just such a strength that came in us through that whole time. I saw my dad. I saw the faith that he had just rise up. And because even before we left Denver, he prayed for God's will. He prayed for God to have His way. He said, God, we want to see her healed, but we want your way. We want your perfect way. And that was pretty big, bold thing, I thought, coming from him. They were so close, so devoted to each other. They just celebrated their 50th anniversary the previous September, and they were just the perfect couple, we always thought. And anyway, as we went through the days, the planning the funeral and all, I remember thinking, it's like flashbacks of things that Mother had said to me. She said, don't sing no old sad songs.
And it's just at the funeral.
She said, right. When I go, don't let them play old sad songs. And I had to laugh. In fact, she showed me this list of songs she had. And she said, these are my favorite songs. And I said, okay, I get it. Now, where will that be? In my Bible. Well, we couldn't find it because she had about 20 Bibles. We never found it. But as we went through her Bibles and went through her journals, she had journals. She always journaled. She wrote her prayers down to the Lord.
Oh.
And we found so many things that was so rich. And she was a Bible teacher for about 15, almost 20 years. She had taught, she started out teaching adult women, senior adult women, and her passion was for them to have the joy of the Lord. She said so many people in their older age, they don't have any joy in their life anymore. They just kind of go and it's almost like they're just waiting for it to be over. And
well, they're pretty much law bound. That's why your mother was not.
She was so full of joy and love. That was her. She just bubbled with it. And you are full of joy when you're not bound, when you're not bound up by
do's and
the
don'ts.
do's and the do's and
right.
the don'ts are the main thing.
Really.
But I think too the past, and
right.
You can be held in bondage to
Guilt
the
for
way
the
you
past
lived before.
and the fear of the future. And because you're not living in the now when you're living like that, because you're always fearing the future and regretting the past, and that can bind you up, and then trying to live right in the present tense. So those three things would cause you to be pretty bound up, and after a while there would be no joy.
That's right.
The joy would be gone. So that would be the normal Christian life of people that have not learned the liberating secret.
That's exactly right.
That's true.
Well,
But your mother knew it, and she knew it by the Spirit through revelation, really. That's the only way you can know
that's
it.
right. I know that's right. Because I think, in her own way, she tried to teach all of us. And she was a teacher and did teach us many, many things. I mean, her funeral, Sylvia, was a celebration of her life. And there were probably 500 people there. And Ricky was the moderator. He stood up and just started talking about Mama, and he said, talked about how she influenced and talked about how she touched lives and the way she loved. And love is the thing.
It is.
If Christ lives in you, you will love.
And it will be unconditional
And
love.
it'll be obvious to the world.
Yes,
and they'll be drawn by that because it's Him.
That's right.
He is love.
That's right.
And that's what she was. But anyway, he talked about, he said, I bet if I asked everybody to stand up that had been touched by her life, that probably half this crowd, people just started spontaneously standing up. And I could hear them behind me. We were sitting up front, and I looked around, and we all did. And almost the entire room stood up. I mean, these were people that they were grieving her like we were. I mean, but with joy. I mean, they were sad that us girls always said, well, we have to share our mama with the world. Our mama and our daddy, but especially our mama. Mama had a whole lot of little chickens, little girls and little guys too, that she prayed for.
Like
she is like you. And I want to be like y'all.
You are.
So that's the point. I do. I want to be. I want that love to flow through me all the time.
It does, Sharon. Light doesn't always behold itself. It just reflects out.
Oh, amen. That's a good word.
There you are. You are the light, and it certainly does shine. Well, tell us a little bit, and probably we'll go into the next program, talking about your own personal journey to discover the liberating truths about yourself.
Well, I was saved when I was 9 years old, and we were living in Arkansas at the time, and it was one of the first times that I remember being in a church service. I can remember when we were young, when Cheryl and I were young girls. I always say Cheryl and I because it's like you see one, you see the other, or always did when we were growing up. And we went to church on Easter Sunday, or something like that, and I remember those, or Vacation Bible School, I remember those. But when we moved to Arkansas, our family that went through a whole lot of changes that caused us to move to Arkansas. And I think my dad was tired of his life, and tired of he was playing music almost every night of the week, and he was working a day job too. He was in debt up to his eyebrows, and there was just no joy in his life. So he moved us to the country in Arkansas, and we lived on a farm, in a farmhouse that hadn't had anybody living in it for a long time. There was no running water in it, and we've often said that it was because we moved to the country and were living in a little kind of a tight unit like that, that the music, where Daddy had always gone out of the house to play music, now it had come home.
Oh.
He and Mama started singing together around the house, and Cheryl and I just naturally joined in, and it taught us to play instruments when we began to act interested in that, and so it became a family thing then. Our music that's how the family band all came to be. And like I said, I was 9 years old, and the guy that we rented, actually, we lived in this house that didn't have running water, and my dad was a plumber by trade, so he made a deal.
I didn't know that.
He was for over 25 years, close to 30 years, and he said, he made a deal with the landlord. If you'll give me a year's rent free, I'll put running water in this house and fix the house up. So he put a bathroom in, put running water in, and water heater, and we brought all that stuff with us from Texas. Because my granddad, and he had a plumbing shop, and they were closing that. So all these things that he took with him. We look like the Beverly Hillbillies moving to Arkansas. But our landlord would come and get me and Cheryl and take us to Sunday school. Mm-hmm. And it was either the first or second time that I was there, and I realized I needed Jesus. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'd heard about Jesus, and I believed, knew who Jesus was, but I didn't know him personally, didn't know him for myself. And so I was saved at 9 years old, and it was a real experience. And I've thought so many times about how the enemy tries to make you doubt your salvation, especially when you're young like that, and you don't have any background in it, you don't know. I didn't have any foundation.
It's so true.
People, the enemy will come and try to steal that seed away, and yet it was such a real. I had enough faith in him at that time. I didn't realize that's what it was, but I never doubted that. I just always felt like I wasn't quite good enough. And so from that point in my life, till I was in my 20s, really, it was like I always felt like I wasn't quite good enough. I needed to do more or be more, or if I could just do better, that was the feeling that I lived under. And probably even longer than that. I mean, I struggled with it even after. There was a period of my life, I had been through a divorce, and then Rick and I married, and we were both just on fire for Jesus. We married in 1981. And Jesus was drawing us. I know that's what it was. Now I can talk about it because I understand it. At the time, I didn't know. I just knew I had a need, and I needed set free. That's what it was. And I had a lot of guilt and a lot of shame in my life.
A lot of it is false guilt.
That's why I started to say some of it was founded, but some of it was not.
False
some
guilt.
of it was just
the devil just drives you crazy with.
Because I had lived that way for many, many years. I've jokingly said, we'd have revival services in our church every year, and I would go down and rededicate my life every year. And I'd make promises like, God, I'm going to do better. I'm going to, you fill in the blank. I was going to read more. I was going to study more. I was going to pray more. I was going to do all these things. And thinking I was going to be more if I did all that. But I couldn't keep those promises till I got home, hardly.
That's the truth.
It's like New Year's resolutions.
Right.
Go ahead and make them if you have to, but you're
Right.
going to break them by the second or third day of the year.
And then more guilt pours
More
in.
guilt. I've done that whole thing. That was, I think, it's part of my personality, and maybe it is just it's a thing that all people do. But I know it is. It's a thing the enemy uses against you
That's right.
to keep you in performance.
Right.
To think that your acceptance is
Well, because based on performance,
Exactly.
right? And because basically we don't know that we're really already joined with Christ. You don't know that, so you feel like you're separate from Christ, and therefore you have to perform separate in order to please Him, and then that just leads you right back to more guilt. And it's like the children in the wilderness, around and around and around you go. You think you do better, and then back again you failed. And then you think you're going to try again, you're going to promise again. And then it's the same pattern over and over and over again. I always say it's like a gerbil going around and around in the little wheel, you know.
I used to say, if the road to hell is paved with good intentions, I've paved many a mile of it.
Whoa, that's a great statement.
Because I tried so hard.
And
that was my heart, was to be perfect. I really
Right.
wanted to be perfect. I did.
And basically because you love Jesus.
and
you love
that's what He deserved, and it is.
Right, it is. And you are.
I am. Thank you, Lord. And not because I do it all right, but because He did it.
That's right, that's right. So then how did the revelation start dawning on you?
Well, it was a progressive revelation, really. Sometimes I would feel like I was very strong, and I'd be doing well, and then other times, like I said, I'd be a mess again, and ashamed, and full of guilt, and full of striving, and honestly, well, Ron Block said some things to me that shocked me, you know. He said one time, as we were talking about all this, and he was telling me about you, this is before I met you, and he was telling me about the truth of our union with Christ, and I was asking questions, and I said, but what do we do with that sin? You know, it's still there. What do we do with that? And he said, the problem is that we're more sin conscious than we are God conscious.
Amen.
And that was like a major revelation to me, Sylvia. It's like I thought, and of course in my mind I was, in my state, I was still, because I was thinking, that's what I'm doing wrong. That's what I'm doing wrong. And really, I guess it's the truth. It's how you see yourself.
Yes.
That it makes all the difference in the world. And I was seeing, like you said, the separate me. I didn't understand that that He was living in me, and He was living His life through me. And that was just the beginning of it for me. And then when I met you, and you began to pour into me all the things about being separated, and how we think separate, and how it's not the truth.
That's right. It's a lie. That Ron just wrote a new article called "Ancient Lie." It's an ancient lie from the devil that constantly, and it came from the fall, really. So it's erroneous thinking from the fall, really, for us to think that we're separate, as separate independent beings, able to do good or perform righteousness or be good for God. And basically it comes from the satanic thinking, because Satan himself sees himself separate and says that he is even greater than God, tries to make himself greater than God, and then he says, I will be like the Most High God. So in a sense, it's not quite the same consciousness, because he was in total rebellion against God and wanted to take God's place. But yet it has the same sense in us, because we're also thinking the same way. I want to be like Jesus. Now we do it because we love the Lord. He didn't do it because he loved the Lord. We do it because we love him. But it is the same lie.
Either way.
It is.
Either way.
It is.
If we take any credit at all for it.
Yeah, right.
And we just can't.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not the truth for first place.
Mm-hmm.
If we could earn it, then we could lose it.
Yes.
That's the way I see it.
Whoa, that's great.
If we could lose it, then we would have to be in a position of having to earn it. I mean, I was taught all along that you don't do anything to earn your salvation. It's a free gift. You receive it.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't understand that. I think in my subconscious, I thought I had to do something to keep it.
Right. Well, Sharon, it looks like we're just about out of time, so we're gonna we're gonna do another program together because this is wonderful and people are interested in your life. I mean, they are, and this is going to go out to the world. So if you hear this on the radio, tune in to www.spiritradio.net, and you will see this. You can download it actually and have it for your own. It will be on an MP3 file. So you might want to have this because I think it's been wonderful, and we're going to continue with this same talk, and we're going to hear more from Sharon. And so thank you for being with us on The Liberating Secret. May God richly bless you. Goodbye.